How's it, everyone? Welcome to another racket review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent, and today I'm testing a racket that I have never tried before. It is an iteration of my favorite Babolat racket line right now, the Pure Strike. So today we're taking a look at the Babolat Pure Strike 97. Let's check it out. So Babolat's Pure Strike line is supposed to be the control-oriented line in Babolat's lineup. The Pure Drive is for power, the Pure Arrow is for spin, and the Strike is for the control. The Strike line used to be endorsed by one of my favorite players on tour, Dominic Thiem. Unfortunately, his career has been going downhill because he's been battling injuries. He is still one of my favorite players, and I love his aggressive swing style. And this racket is geared towards those types of players that really swing fast, hit a lot of heavy topspin, but also can provide their own power because the Pure Strike line is more control oriented. And this 97 version is the most control oriented version of the Pure Strike. So this Pure Strike is sort of supposed to be a spiritual successor to the Pure Control and Pure Storm lines. I used to use the Pure Storm and Pure Control, and it was very control oriented, didn't provide a whole lot of free power, but this Pure Strike actually does do a good job of balancing out both power and precision, still leaning more towards control. And this 97 version is supposed to be more reminiscent of those Pure Control and Pure Storm days. The Pure Strike has a little bit more flex when you hit the ball than the Pure Drive and Pure Arrow because the beam is thinner. Those thick frame beams are a little bit stiffer, and this one will flex a little bit more. I have reviewed the Pure Strike 98 Gen 4, which this is also the Gen 4, so check that review out if you haven't yet. I'm not going to go over all of the new technologies because I do go over some of them. Some of the other differences besides the spec include the stock leather grip. I know a lot of advanced players love leather grips. I'm not the biggest fan of them because they do slip in my hand when my hand gets sweaty, so I do play with an overgrip even over a leather grip, and it does thicken up the grip a little bit more. I like thinner grips. Also, the head guard on this racket, if you can see, usually it stops around here, but this one goes all the way down to around the 3 and 9 o'clock positions, so it gives a lot of protection when you're scooping up balls, when you're approaching the net, or maybe you're hitting a low slice. This will provide protection for the frame. So the biggest differences between the 97 version and the standard 98 lies in the specs, so let's take a look at that now. Alright, so here are the specs. As you can see, there are some notable differences. The balance is 310, which I really like. I like sub 310 balances, meaning that it's a little bit on the head lighter side. It's a 16 by 20 pattern, which is also reminiscent of the old Pure Control 98, which was also a 1620 that I used to use. And the beam is slightly thinner than the standard 98. So this is definitely more on the control oriented side. Alright, so I'm excited to get on the court and finally test out the Pure Strike 97. A lot of people have been requesting this racket, so I finally got my hands on it. So let's jump on the court. But before that, if you guys like this content and want to see more, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button to keep the reviews coming. So let's start with the pros of the Babolat Pure Strike 97 Gen 4. What I liked most about this racket was just how fast it swung. It is a bit on the lighter side at 310 grams, and the 310 balance made this thing feel like a saber. I got it over my head and around my body so easily. Even with the smaller head size and 20 crosses, I could hit decent kick serves because of the easy racket head acceleration. I would love to try this racket with a shaped poly because I was getting decent kick even with the hybrid. The racket allowed for easy pronation and wrist snap. Seeing my opponent reaching above their shoulders to try to return my kick serve is one of the most satisfying feelings for me, and I was able to force my opponent to do exactly that consistently. This racket excelled on return of serves in terms of a timing standpoint. I was never late when returning fast serves. I got the Pure Strike around my body so easily, and I was able to push through returns and pressure my opponent. The fast, whippy feel also made playing defense rather easy. It wasn't a perfect racket for defense because it does flutter a bit in the hand, but I was never late getting this racket into position to hit a defensive slice, reflex volley, outstretched return, or an impulsive lob. Hitting forehands on the run was also really fun. When I swung vertically Nadal style, I got a ton of side spin and I could hit the ball deep without issue. The maneuverability also translated well to my net game. I am more of a crafty player that likes to mix things up by hitting drop shots and angles to surprise my opponent. For this, I need something that swings fast and precise. The Pure Strike 97 with its balance and thin beam gave me exactly that. This racket was a scalpel at the net and it let me hit precise volleys that landed pretty much where I wanted. The frame is a bit too muted, but it isn't too dead. I could still feel the ball, and I think a crisper poly would make my front court game even more deadly. Poaching was pretty easy because this racket didn't feel like an anvil dragging me down. I tend to struggle with poaching with a head-heavy racket because I can't get the racket into position in time to cut off the return, but the Pure Strike 97 let me get the racket into position to put the ball away, albeit with a little bit of stability issue, which I'll touch on later. It does lack a bit of stability when I don't strike the ball clean, but for the most part I could still win points with my volleys because of the precision this stick gave me. The thin beam and headlight balance also made aggressive slices so much fun. The frame cuts through the air so fast and imparts so much backspin. I could see my ball sliding over the net and landing with a slight skid. Height control, depth control, and lateral control were seamless on slices, and this might be my favorite part of this playtest, possibly tied with my volleys. I also enjoyed the pinpoint control on full swings from the baseline, especially on my aggressive forehands. The thin beam cut through the air well to impart some natural topspin. The extra cross string also helped keep the strings from sliding too much. If strings move too much, it creates an erratic launch angle. The Pure Strike 97's trajectory was predictable and I could rally with the opposing baseliner without issue. Lateral control was also great. I had no trouble hitting left and right because the headlight balance allowed me to control the direction easily. Even when I flattened out my shot, I still could keep the ball inside the baseline. The Pure Strike is a naturally low-powered lineup, so it incentivized me to swing. It's super satisfying when I know I'm the one generating the power when I hit past my opponents. So to sum up, the headlight balance unlocked every aspect of my game and I was able to hit every shot in my arsenal for the most part, and that is really what I want from a racket. So now let's get into the cons of the Babolat Pure Strike 97. First off, I want to say I really enjoyed this racket and most of the cons I'm about to mention can be fixed with some customization. With that said, the biggest issue I had was the lack of swing weight and stability. With a 310 gram unstrung weight, 310mm balance, and thin beam, this racket gets pushed around easily when facing hard hitters. The lack of stability reared its head in a number of ways. First off, my returns. Although the lightweight allowed me to never be late on returns, if I didn't hit the sweet spot cleanly, the racket would twist in my hand and cause my return to either land in the net or land short for my opponent to attack. I couldn't follow my return to the net reliably if I didn't catch it clean. Secondly, my volleys. The Pure Strike 97 lacks the swing weight to punch through volleys for winners. I had to rely more on my crafty angle volleys to win points at the net, and admittedly this is my favorite way to win points, but it would have been nice to also be able to punch through volleys for easy winners. When I poached, if I hit off center, my volley would easily be scooped up by the defender and I couldn't poach with confidence and authority. Lastly, on my ground strokes, I didn't really have any issue with striking the sweet spot, but my ground strokes just didn't have the weight to give my opponents fits. This was especially true on my backhand. Even when I got my hips fully rotated on my backhand, I noticed my shots just didn't have any penetration. My high backhand is the shot I struggled with most because when I couldn't get my weight behind the ball and I was reaching, my shots had no pace and most of the time I would dump high backhands into the net. This could be solved with some weight at 3 and 9 to give this frame a bit more swing weight and plow through. I would also add some weight in the throat to increase the heft of the racket to increase torsional stability so it doesn't twist in my hand on off-center hits. Next con is the overall low-powered nature. Even if I add weight to the frame, this racket will just not have as much punch as a pure drive, so my serves lacked power. I don't hit the fastest flat serve to begin with, so I really would benefit from a racket that assists somewhat with power, but I got almost no help with the Pure Strike. I usually like to rely on my slice flat hybrid serve at the beginning until my shoulder warms up. I like to hit my slice flat into the body. Although the Pure Strike is great for accuracy with serves, my opponent could get around it pretty easily because of the lack of speed. If you are tall and already hit a powerful serve, this might not be an issue. Otherwise, a gut poly hybrid could definitely solve the power crisis. One thing that customization can't really solve though is the feel and response. The Pure Strike 97 is somewhat dampened and I didn't quite get the crisp feel I want from a frame. Honestly, it's getting harder and harder for me to find a modern frame with the feel I want because so many companies are focusing more on comfort and dampening. The Gen 4 Pure Strikes aren't super mushy by any means, but they aren't as responsive as the Gen 2 Project 1.7 versions. A crisp poly can give me a bit more response, and something like Lynx Tour can give me both the response and pop that I want. Lastly, this is a personal gripe, but I don't really like the stock leather grip. I've never really been a fan of leather grips because they tend to be a bit fatter than synthetic grips. I prefer a smaller handle so I have more command over the racket. Also, even with an overgrip, I was getting a bunch of blisters on my hand after a couple of hours. So those are my cons. Overall, I really like the Pure Strike 97, and if I were to customize it to my liking, I would add weight at 3 and 9 and also in the throat to increase the swing weight and add torsional stability. But I also want to preserve the headlight balance, so I would put an equal amount of weight under the butt cap in the form of tungsten putty. And of course, string it with my favorite poly Lynx Tour for more pop and feel. Other than that, this racket doesn't have any glaring faults. So who is the Babolat Pure Strike 97 for? It's for players who already can generate good pace and spin and want something that swings fast and provides good control. The control comes in the form of accuracy and placement, so if you're a really aggressive swinger that just wants their shots to stay inside the lines, you might want to consider a low-powered string setup. If you like to swing big and want something with comfort, the Gen 4 Pure Strikes do provide your arm with some protection. But I still like the standard 98, 16, 19 Pure Strike the best because it provides the best balance of spin, power, control, and the balance that I like. So now I want to hear from you. Have you tried the Gen 4 Pure Strike 97? Which is your favorite Pure Strike spec as well as the generation? I still like the Project 1.7 best. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for watching this review of the Babolat Pure Strike 97 right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.